Leave a comment with your city name and subscribe to HFY Tales by JB.
The interrogation chamber aboard the Zephyrian warship Dominance was designed to break spirits before bodies. Sterile white walls reflected harsh light from every angle, creating a space where shadows couldn't hide and hope couldn't survive. The air itself felt cold, calculated, engineered to make prisoners feel small and powerless. Captain Elena Vasquez hung suspended in energy shackles, her wrists raw from 3 days of struggle. Blood matted her dark hair, and purple bruises mapped a geography of pain across her face. But her eyes burned with something her captors couldn't understand. Commander Crystal circled her like a predator examining wounded prey. His 7-foot frame was encased in biomechanical armor that pulsed with veins of blue light. His face was a nightmare of chitinous plates and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's harsh illumination. Day 3, Human Subject 7 Alpha. Crystal's voice came through translation speakers, clinical and cold. You continue to resist our inquiries. This demonstrates the primitive stubbornness your species mistakes for courage. Elena said nothing. She'd stopped responding to questions. 18 hours ago. Tell me, Crystal continued, manipulating a holographic display that showed human colony ships burning. Do you feel pride watching your pathetic species flee before our superiority? Your mighty Earth Defense Force lasted exactly 47 minutes against our advanced scouts. The lie was calculated. Elena knew the Battle of Proxima had lasted 6 hours and cost the Zephyrians 30 ships. But she didn't correct him. Instead, she did something that made Crystal's compound eyes narrow with suspicion. She smiled. You find your species' annihilation amusing? Crystal leaned closer, his breath smelling of ozone and decay. Perhaps you require a more intensive demonstration of your situation. Elena's lips barely moved as she whispered, 68 hours. What did you say? Nothing. Elena's voice was hoarse, but steady, just counting. Crystal studied her for a long moment, then activated his comm unit. Guards, bring the human to the amphitheater. It's time the crew enjoyed some entertainment. As armored Zephyrian soldiers dragged Elena from the chamber, none of them noticed the faint blue glow emanating from beneath the skin at the base of her skull, or the way that glow pulsed in a steady rhythm like a heartbeat made of light. 3 days earlier, the human scout ship Meridian had been on what appeared to be a routine reconnaissance mission in the Outer Rim territories. Captain Elena Vasquez had led her crew of 12 through the asteroid fields of the Kepler 9 system, their instruments scanning for any trace of the missing colony ships that had vanished from this sector over the past month. Captain reported. Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station, I'm reading debris fields at coordinates 1 to 7 MA RK5. Composition suggests human hull materials. Elena's jaw tightened. Another colony ship. Another 1,000 families who would never see home again. Life signs. Negative, Captain. Whatever happened here? There were no survivors. Elena had commanded deep space reconnaissance for 15 years. She'd seen the aftermath of pirate attacks, equipment failures, and natural disasters. But this was different. The debris patterns were too precise, the destruction to complete. This was systematic annihilation, ma'am, called Ensign Parks from communications, incoming transmission on emergency frequency. It's a distress call. Put it through. The bridge speakers crackled with static. Then a voice emerged, human, terrified, desperate. This is colony ship New Hope. We are under attack by unknown vessels. They're not responding to hails. They're just destroying everything. Oh God, they're targeting the escape pods. Why are they targeting the escape pods? The transmission cut to silence. Elena stared at the view screen, watching debris tumble slowly through space. Somewhere in that expanding cloud of metal and plastic were the remains of families who had dreamed of new worlds, children who would never grow up, lovers who had died in each other's arms. Captain. Torres' voice was tight with tension. Long range. Sensors are detecting multiple contacts approaching fast. Configuration unknown, but they're big. Elena's tactical mind shifted into high gear. 12 ships, approaching in perfect formation. Moving faster than anything in the known databases. Not human, not any known species. Battle stations, all hands to emergency positions. The Meridian was a scout ship, fast, stealthy, but lightly armed, against 12 unknown hostiles. Their only chance was to run, but as Elena watched the tactical display, she realized something that made her blood run cold. The approaching ships had positioned themselves to cut off every escape route. This wasn't a random encounter. It was a trap, Captain Torres reported, voice steady despite the impossible odds. Contacts are powering weapons. Energy signatures are. Christ, they're off the charts. Elena looked around her bridge at faces she'd known for years, her crew, her responsibility, her family. Attention all hands, she announced over the ship's comm. Prepare for combat, and prepare escape pods for immediate launch. The attack came without warning or communication. 12 ships that looked like crystalline spiders descended on the Meridian with weapons that tore through their shields like paper. Elena's ship bucked and rolled under the assault. Emergency lights painting everything in hellish red, shields at 20%. Torres shouted over the noise of failing systems, return fire. Elena commanded, knowing it was futile, but refusing to die without fighting. The Meridian's weapons lanced out, striking one of the attacking ships. For a moment, Elena dared to hope. Then the enemy vessel's hull simply repaired itself. The damage vanished as if it had never existed. Impossible, breathed Lieutenant Torres. Captain, Parks called from his station. They're trying to board us. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Elena made the hardest decision of her career. All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now. Captain, we're not leaving you. That's an order. Elena's voice carried the authority of 15 years commanding in deep space. Someone has to survive to warn Earth. Go, as her crew reluctantly evacuated. Elena remained on the bridge, using the ship's weapons to buy them precious seconds. She watched on her tactical display as 12 small blips, escape pods carrying her people, scattered in all directions. Most would make it. Most would survive to carry word of this new threat back to human space. It was enough. The boarding parties reached the bridge just as Elena's ship finally lost power. Tall figures in biomechanical armor surrounded her, weapons raised, but not firing. They wanted her alive. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a face that would haunt her dreams. Compound eyes, chitinous skin, mandibles that clicked with alien speech. I am Commander Crystal of the Zephyrian hegemony. You are now property of a superior species. Elena spat blood from her split lip. Go to hell. Crystal's mandibles spread in what might have been amusement. Hell, primitive? You're already there. Now, 3 days later, Elena hung in energy shackles before an amphitheater filled with Zephyrian crew members. The massive chamber could hold thousands, and it seemed every alien on the ship had come to witness the spectacle of a captured human. Admiral Vextar stood on the central platform, his ornate armor marking him as Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian fleet. When he spoke, his voice carried across the amphitheater with the weight of absolute authority. Crew of the Dominance, brothers and sisters of the hegemony. His words were translated for Elena's benefit, letting her understand every syllable. Of contempt, behold the master race that dares to resist our expansion. Derisive laughter echoed from 1,000 alien throats. Elena hung motionless, but her eyes never left Vextar's face. This pathetic creature represents the pinnacle of human evolution, Vextar continued. Observe its primitive anatomy, its inefficient biological processes. It's laughably crude. Neural pathways. More laughter. Elena's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. The human believes its species possesses some form of nobility, some inherent worth that elevates it above other animals. Vextar approached Elena's suspended form. Tell me, primitive, where is this nobility as your colonies burn? Where is this worth as your children die screaming? Elena's eyes blazed. You want to know about human nobility? You just made the worst mistake in galactic history. The amphitheater fell silent. Vextar's compound eyes fixed on Elena with new interest. Explain. You could have coexisted with us, could have traded, negotiated, even competed peacefully. But you chose genocide, Elena's voice carried despite her physical pain. You chose to threaten human children, and that, you arrogant bastard, changes everything. Vextar studied her for a long moment. You speak as if your extinction were not inevitable, as if some force might intervene on your behalf. Tell me, human, what power in this galaxy could challenge the Zephyrian hegemony? Elena's smile was sharp as broken glass. 65 hours and counting. Unknown to the Zephyrians mocking their human prisoner, Elena Vasquez was far more than a simple scout captain. 6 months earlier, she had sat in a classified briefing room deep beneath the Antarctic ice, listening to Admiral Sarah Chen outline humanity's most desperate gamble. Captain Vasquez, Admiral Chen had said, her weathered face grim in the blue glow of holographic displays. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. If you accept this mission, you may never see Earth again. Elena had straightened in her chair after her husband's death in the Centauri raids. She'd volunteered for every dangerous assignment the Defense Force offered. This sounded like exactly what she needed. I'm listening, Admiral. Chen manipulated the hologram, showing a star map of human space. Red markers indicated Zephyrian attacks, 17 colonies destroyed in 6 months. With the pattern of destruction expanding steadily toward Earth, our intelligence suggests the Zephyrians are conducting a systematic campaign of extermination. Not conquest, annihilation. They intend to wipe humanity from the galaxy. Elena nodded grimly. She'd seen the aftermath of their attacks. No survivors, no prisoners, just empty space where human dreams used to live. However, Chen continued, they've made one critical error in their campaign. The hologram shifted, showing tactical analyses of Zephyrian ship movements and attack patterns. They're hunting our scattered fleets, trying to eliminate our military capacity before making their final push toward Earth. But they're operating under the assumption that our fleets represent our total military strength. Elena frowned. Don't they? Chen's smile was like winter ice. Captain, let me tell you about Project Leviathan. The hologram changed again, showing what looked like technical schematics for the largest structure Elena had ever seen. Not a ship, a spaceborne city, a thing so vast it defied comprehension. 50 years ago, during the First Contact Wars, with the Altarian Empire, humanity learned a harsh lesson about galactic politics. In a universe full of predators, prey species need ultimate protection or they become extinct. Elena stared at the impossible dimensions displayed in the hologram. How is something that size even possible? Precursor technology, alien, artifacts recovered from dead worlds, bioengineering that can grow holes instead of building them, and most importantly, 10,000 volunteers who knew they might never come home. The Admiral manipulated the display, showing the internal structure of the massive vessel, vast biomechanical systems, weapons that seemed to bend physics, and at its heart, a fusion of human and alien consciousness that served as the ship's guiding intelligence. The Leviathan has been waiting in deep space for 3 years, maintaining complete radio silence. Its crew has dedicated their lives to serving as humanity's ultimate guardian. But there's one problem. Elena waited. The ship can only be activated by a specific quantum signature, a beacon that must be carried by a designated agent and triggered under precise conditions. Chen reached into her desk and withdrew a small DEVICE that looked like a metallic spider. This is a quantum transmitter. If surgically implanted at the base of your spine, it will integrate with your nervous system and begin broadcasting after exactly 72 hours of separation from human ships. Elena understood immediately. Bait, the most dangerous bait in human history. You would need to be captured by Zephyrian forces and held for exactly 3 days. During that time, you would be subjected to interrogation, torture, and quite possibly death. But if you survive those 72 hours, the Leviathan comes for me. The Leviathan comes for justice. Elena had stared at the quantum transmitter for a long time. She thought about her husband, David, vaporized when Zephyrian raiders hit the mining station where he'd been working. She thought about the colony ships full of families, the children, who would never grow up, the futures cut short by alien arrogance. What are the odds I survived long enough for the beacon to activate? Chen's honesty was brutal. 30%, maybe less. Elena nodded and held out her hand. When do we start? Now. As she hung in the Zephyrian amphitheater listening to aliens mock her species, Elena felt the quantum transmitter pulsing beneath her skin. The surgical implant had integrated so completely with her nervous system that it felt like a second heartbeat. A countdown to salvation or damnation. 65 hours had passed since her capture. 7 hours remained until the beacon reached full power and sent its signal into the darkness between stars. Admiral Vexthar continued his speech to the assembled crew. The human extinction will serve as an example to other primitive species. Resistance to Zephyrian expansion is not merely futile, it is a crime against natural order. Enthusiastic clicking filled the amphitheater as thousands of aliens expressed approval. In their harsh language, our intelligence estimates indicate that fewer than 40 human warships remain operational. Once these are eliminated, their homeworld will be defenseless. The cleansing can begin. Elena's heart clenched. 40 ships. If that intelligence was accurate, and the Zephyrians were nothing if not thorough, then humanity's conventional military was indeed on the verge of collapse. Everything now depended on whether the Leviathan could reach her in time. However, Vexthar continued, before we proceed with the final phase, we must extract all possible intelligence from our prisoner, the locations of their remaining bases, the strength of their defenses, the hiding places of their civilian populations. The Admiral approached Elena's suspended form. Up close, she could see that his armor wasn't just decorative. It was integrated with his biology, turning him into a living weapon. You will tell us everything, human, if not through cooperation, then through pain. Elena met his compound gaze without flinching. I already told you everything you need to know. You've made the worst mistake in galactic history, and what mistake is that? You assumed we were prey. Vexthar's mandibles clicked with amusement. Look around you. Primitive. You hang helpless before 200 ships of the most advanced fleet in known space. Your species faces extinction. In what possible reality are you not prey? Elena's smile was serene as a saint facing martyrdom. 7 hours. Then you'll understand. The Admiral studied her for a moment, then turned to Crystal. Commander, intensify the interrogation. Use whatever methods necessary. This human knows something, and I want to know what it is. As Elena was dragged back to the interrogation chamber, none of the Zephyrians noticed the faint quantum signature beginning to emanate from their prisoner. A signal so subtle that only the most sensitive instruments could detect it, growing stronger with each passing our dot in the depths of space. Trillions of miles from the nearest star, something vast and patient felt that signal touch its consciousness and began to wake from its long sleep. The Zephyrian science officer Velketh had served aboard the Dominance for 12 years. In that time, he had analyzed the technology of 7 different species and supervised the systematic cataloging of their capabilities before their worlds were cleansed. He took pride in his thoroughness, his attention to detail, his ability to detect even the most subtle anomalies, which was why the readings he was seeing made no sense whatsoever. Commander Crystal, he reported over the ship's communication system, I need you to review these quantum resonance scans immediately. Crystal's image appeared on Velketh's workstation display, compound eyes reflecting annoyance at being interrupted during the prisoner's interrogation. This had better be important. Science officer, the human is proving resilient to standard questioning techniques, sir. I've been conducting routine background radiation sweeps of local space, and I'm detecting quantum signatures that don't match any known phenomena. Crystal's expression shifted to interest. Explain. Velketh manipulated his instruments, sharing the sensor data with Crystal's station. The signatures appear to be artificial in origin, suggesting some form of advanced technology. But they're unlike anything in our databases. Distance and bearing, that's the problem, sir. The signals appear to originate from extreme range, beyond the edge of our sensor network, but they're growing stronger by the hour. Crystal studied the data for several moments. Probability assessment for natural phenomenon, less than 12%, sir. The patterns are too regular, too structured. This is definitely artificial. Could it be a human distress beacon? Some form of primitive emergency signal. Velketh's analysis was dismissive. Impossible, sir. Human quantum technology is centuries behind our own. They lack the theoretical framework to generate signatures of this complexity. Crystal nodded. Continue monitoring. Report any significant changes immediately. Yes, sir. But Commander, what if it's not human? The question hung in the recycled air of the science lab. Both Zephyrians understood the implications. If another species was approaching their position, one advanced enough to generate quantum signatures beyond their understanding, the situation could become complicated. Maintain passive scanning only, Crystal ordered. No active sensors. We don't want to announce our presence until we understand what we're dealing with. As Crystal's image faded from the display, Velketh returned to his instruments. The quantum signatures were definitely growing stronger, more complex, and there was something about their structure that made his scales itch with unease. They felt intentional, directed, as if something vast and intelligent was reaching across impossible distances to touch their corner of space. Meanwhile, in the interrogation chamber, Elena hung in her energy shackles and counted heartbeats. Each pulse of the quantum transmitter brought salvation closer. 6 hours and 37 minutes remained until full activation. Crystal entered the chamber, accompanied by two guards carrying implements that Elena didn't want to identify. His mood had clearly darkened since receiving the science. "Officers, report. Tell me about human quantum technology," he demanded without preamble. Elena blinked slowly. "What? Don't play ignorant. We're detecting quantum signatures of unknown origin. Coincidentally, these signatures began appearing shortly after your capture." Elena's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." Crystal activated one of the torture devices. Energy crackled along its surface, and the smell of ozone filled the chamber. "Human, I have neither the time nor the patience for deception. Tell me what you know about the quantum emissions, or I will begin removing body parts until you cooperate." Elena stared at the device without flinching. She'd endured 3 days of interrogation already. A few more hours wouldn't break her, even if I knew something about quantum emissions, she said carefully. "Why would I tell you? You're planning to exterminate my species anyway." "Because." Crystal moved closer, his compound eyes reflecting the torture device's energy. "Cooperation might earn you a quick death instead of the alternatives I'm considering." Elena almost laughed. "You think that's a threat? You arrogant bastard. Death stopped being scary the moment you murdered my husband." Crystal paused. "Your mate is dead. David Vasquez, mining engineer, killed when your raiders hit Ceres Station 2 years ago, along with 1,500 other civilians who never hurt anyone." For a moment, something almost like comprehension flickered in Crystal's alien features. "You blame us for his death. I blame you for choosing genocide over coexistence. My husband was a builder, not a warrior. He designed atmospheric processors to make dead worlds livable. Your people could have hired him. Instead, you vaporized him. Inferior species must yield to superior ones. This is natural law." Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. 6 hours. What? Nothing. Just natural law is about to get a revision deep in space, in a region so empty that even cosmic background radiation seemed muted. The IHS Leviathan stirred from its long vigil. The ship defied easy description. Built over 5 decades using a combination of human engineering and recovered precursor technology, it was less a vessel than a living organism, grown into the shape of war. 17 miles long and 12 miles wide, its biomechanical hull pulsed with veins of bioluminescent fluid that served as both circulatory system and data network. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the Leviathan's command center, though stood wasn't quite accurate. The ship's neural interface had integrated with her nervous system years ago, making her as much a part of the vessel as any biological organ. She felt its pain when whole segments grew, experienced its hunger when the fusion reactors needed fuel, shared its dreams during the long periods of hibernation. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres, Elena's former tactical officer, now serving aboard humanity's ultimate guardian. "Quantum beacon has reached 87% activation threshold." Chen's consciousness expanded through the ship's sensory network, feeling the beacon's signal like a distant star growing brighter. "How long until full activation?" 5 hours, 43 minutes. "Begin awakening sequence. All departments prepare for emergency fold space transit throughout the Leviathan's vast interior." 10,000 crew members felt the ship's awakening through their neural links. Systems that had slumbered for 3 years began cycling to full power. Weapons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level started their charging sequences. Engines that bet space-time itself prepared for the longest jump in human history. In the ship's biomechanical heart, the fusion of human and precursor consciousness that served as the Leviathan's guiding intelligence stirred to full awareness. "The child calls to us," it whispered directly into Chen's mind. The beacon burns bright with pain and defiance. Chen felt the ship's emotion as her own, protective fury mixed with cold determination. The Leviathan had been built for one purpose, to ensure that no force in the galaxy could threaten humanity's survival. That purpose was about to be fulfilled. How many hostiles at the beacon's location? The ship's sensors, enhanced with precursor technology that could see across impossible distances, penetrated space to focus on Elena's position. 217 ships. Configuration suggests advanced military technology. Threat level significant but manageable. Chen almost smiled. The Leviathan's idea of manageable would have terrified most species, but then most species hadn't spent 50 years preparing for absolute war. Time to intercept. For hours, 12 minutes at maximum fold space velocity. Chen nodded and opened a ship-wide communication channel. Her voice reached every crew member through their neural links, carrying not just words, but emotion, determination, and love for the woman whose beacon was calling them home. All hands, this is Admiral Chen. The moment we've prepared for has arrived. One of our own is in enemy hands, surrounded by forces that believe humanity can be bullied into extinction in 4 hours. We're going to remind the galaxy why that's a mistake. Throughout the ship, 10,000 voices responded as one, not spoken words, but a surge of shared emotion, resolve, fury, and absolute dedication to their mission. The Leviathan began its final journey. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Science Officer Velketh watched his instruments with growing alarm. The quantum signatures had intensified dramatically over the past hour, and now his sensors were detecting something that made his scales crawl with instinctive fear. Commander Crystal, urgent report. Crystal's image appeared immediately. What is it, sir? The quantum signatures have reached critical intensity, and I'm detecting massive spatial distortions at extreme range, meaning something is moving toward us, sir. Something very large, traveling at velocities that should be physically impossible. Crystal was silent for several seconds. Size estimates? Sir, the readings don't make sense. If these numbers are accurate, we're looking at an object approximately 17 miles in length. Run diagnostics on all sensor arrays. Those readings are obviously in error, sir. I've already run 3 full diagnostics. The readings are consistent. Whatever is approaching us is larger than some asteroids. Crystal's compound eyes reflected the bridge lights as he processed this information. Time to intercept, at current velocity, approximately 4 hours. Alert Admiral Vexthar immediately, and Velketh, yes, sir, have the fleet begin moving to defensive positions. Whatever is coming for us, I want to be ready. In the interrogation chamber, Elena felt the quantum transmitter's pulse quicken as it approached full activation. Less than 4 hours remained. She could almost feel the Leviathan's approach, like a storm front moving across her consciousness. Crystal returned to the chamber, his manner more urgent than before. Human, I'm going to ask you one final time. What do you know about the object? Approaching our position, Elena looked up at him with eyes that no longer showed fear. I know it's coming for you. You admit knowledge of this thing. I admit that your time is running out. In less than 4 hours, you're going to face something you can't understand, can't defeat, and can't escape. Crystal activated the energy torture device. Tell me what it is. Elena's smile was radiant with anticipation. It's justice. The Zephyrian fleet had arranged itself in perfect battle formation. 217 ships positioned in overlapping defensive spheres around their flagship. Admiral Vexthar stood on the bridge of the Supremacy, his compound eyes studying tactical displays that showed the approaching anomaly. Science Division confirms the object's dimensions, reported his tactical officer. 17 miles long, 12 miles wide, approximately 4 miles thick. Mass estimates suggest it's largely hollow, but the energy signatures, what about? The energy signatures, they're unlike anything in our databases, sir. The object appears to be powered by multiple fusion reactors, but there are also readings that our instruments can't identify. Vexthar's mandibles clicked with frustration. In 8 centuries of conquest, the Zephyrian hegemony had encountered dozens of species, cataloged their technologies, and systematically eliminated those who refused to submit. Never before had they faced something completely beyond their understanding. What's our current tactical assessment? Unknown, sir. We have no data on the object's weapons, defenses, or capabilities. For all we know, it could be a scientific vessel or a refugee transport. Or it could be a weapon specifically designed to kill us, Vexthar added grimly. Maintain offensive formation. All ships are 2 charged weapons, but hold fire until we determine hostile intent. The tactical officer hesitated. Sir, what if it doesn't communicate? What if it simply attacks? Vexthar considered this. The approaching object was larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, possibly larger than anything they'd ever encountered. If it was hostile, if it was armed proportionally to its size, then we'll discover whether our superiority extends to utterly unknown threats. In the depths of space, the Leviathan continued its approach. The ship's biomechanical hull rippled with patterns of bioluminescence as its systems reached full combat readiness. Weapons that could tear holes in reality itself powered up along its spine. Defensive systems that could bend space-time into Protective barriers hummed with energy. Admiral Chen felt the ship's anticipation through their neural link. After 3 years of waiting, of wondering if this moment would ever come, the Leviathan was finally going to fulfill its purpose. Status report, she requested. Commander Torres' voice came from everywhere and nowhere, transmitted directly through the ship's consciousness. All systems optimal. Full space engines at maximum efficiency. Weapons charged and ready. Defensive screens prepared for activation in Elena's condition. The ship's sensors, enhanced with precursor technology, could detect individual biosignatures at interstellar distances. Chen felt Elena's presence like a candle flame surrounded by hostile darkness, alive but weakened. Severe physical trauma consistent with torture. However, her quantum beacon is functioning perfectly, signal strength at 96%. Chen's fury flowed through the ship's neural network, shared by 10,000 crew members who had also lost friends and family to alien aggression. The Leviathan responded to their collective anger, its weapons system surging with additional power. Time to intercept. 37 minutes. Open a channel to all departments. It's time to explain to the crew what we're really facing. Chen's consciousness expanded through the ship's communication system, reaching every mind connected to the Leviathan's neural network. My friends, in 37 minutes we will engage the Zephyrian fleet. Our intelligence indicates they have systematically exterminated 17 human colonies. They have murdered millions of our people, men, women, children who never threatened anyone. The ship itself seemed to pulse with shared emotion, as 10,000 minds contemplated the scope of Zephyrian atrocities. The enemy believes they represent evolutionary superiority. They believe inferior species should submit to extermination. They are about to learn that humans have a different perspective on natural selection. Chen paused, allowing her words to resonate through the ship's consciousness. We are not conquerors. We are not empire builders. We are guardians, protectors, and when predators threaten our children, we remind them why prey species evolved teeth. The Leviathan's response was not audible sound, but pure emotion, determination, fury, and love for the species they had sworn to protect. Weapons that could shatter planets hummed with readiness. Engines that could fold space prepared for the final approach. Humanity's ultimate guardian was ready for war aboard the Zephyrian flagship. Panic was beginning to spread through the crew. The approaching object had resolved on their view screens, and what they saw defied every assumption about ship design they'd ever held. By the old gods, whispered the tactical officer. It's alive. The thing approaching them was indeed alive in ways that challenged comprehension. Its whole pulsed with organic rhythms. Patterns of light flowed across its surface like neural impulses, and along its spine, structures that might have been weapons or organs rotated to track their fleet. Sir, reported the communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from the object. Put it through. The main view screen activated, showing the bridge of the approaching vessel. The figure that appeared was humanoid, but somehow more connected to her ship through technology. That made her seem like an extension of the vessel itself. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Leviathan. You are holding Captain Elena Vasquez as a prisoner. You have 30 seconds to release her unharmed and withdraw from human space. Vexthar stepped forward, his armor gleaming under the bridge lights. I am Admiral Vexthar of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your primitive species has no authority in this sector. Your vessel will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Chen's expression didn't change. Admiral, you have killed millions of human civilians, children, families, people who never threaten your empire. Inferior species must yield to superior ones. This is natural law. Natural law. Chen repeated quietly, then let me teach you about natural selection from a human perspective. The transmission ended. For a moment, the Zephyrian bridge was silent. Then Vexthar turned to his tactical officer. All ships, open fire. 217 Zephyrian warships discharged their weapons simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes converged on the Leviathan in a display of firepower that could have sterilized a planet. The energy barrage struck the Leviathan's hull and simply stopped, absorbed, converted into something else entirely. Impossible, breathed Vexthar. The Leviathan's response was not weapons fire. Instead, reality itself seemed to bend around one of the Zephyrian cruisers. Space folded, twisted, and when it snapped back to normal configuration, the cruiser was gone. Not destroyed, simply absent, as if it had never existed. What What did they do? Stammered the tactical officer. Before Vexthar could respond, the Leviathan's voice filled every ship in the Zephyrian fleet, not transmitted through communication systems, but somehow speaking directly to their minds. You chose genocide over coexistence. You chose to murder children. This choice has consequences. Another Zephyrian ship vanished from existence. We are humanity's guardians. We are the price of your arrogance. Aboard the Dominance, Commander Crystal felt something he had never experienced in his 12 years of military service: absolute terror. The thing outside wasn't just a ship, it was a force of nature, a living embodiment of retribution that could unmake matter itself. All ships, concentrate fire on the creature's center mass. Vexthar's voice crackled through the fleet communications. The remaining Zephyrian vessels focused their weapons on the Leviathan's core. The biomechanical hull absorbed the energy barrage like a sponge, its bioluminescent patterns brightening as it converted destructive force into raw power. Then the Leviathan returned fire. What emerged from its weapons wasn't plasma or particles, but something that made reality itself. Scream! Beams of twisted space-time lanced out, touching 3 more Zephyrian ships. Where the beams made contact, the vessels didn't explode, they simply ceased. Their atoms forgot how to exist, their energy scattered into dimensions that had no names. In the interrogation chamber of the Dominance, Elena felt the quantum transmitter reach full activation. The beacon's signal blazed through space like a star being born, and through her neural connection to the device, she could feel the Leviathan's presence as clearly as her own heartbeat. Crystal burst into the chamber, his compound eyes wide with panic. What is that thing? What have you done? Elena looked up at him with eyes that held no fear, only profound satisfaction. I told you. You made the worst mistake in galactic history. It's just one ship. We had 200 vessels. Had, Elena corrected. You had 100 vessels, and it's not just a ship, Commander. It's consequences. Through the chamber's viewports, Elena could see the battle raging outside. Zephyrian ships fired desperately at something that absorbed their attacks and responded with weapons that deleted matter from existence. Already, a dozen vessels had vanished without trace. How is this possible? Crystal demanded. Human technology is primitive. You lack the theoretical framework for these capabilities. Elena's smile was radiant. We do. But 50 years ago, we found some friends who didn't. The truth hit Crystal like a physical blow. Precursor technology. You found precursor ruins. Not just found them, learned from them, integrated their knowledge with our own. Spent 5 decades building something that could protect our children from monsters like you. Another wave of reality warping energy swept through the Zephyrian formation. 5 more ships vanished, their crews never even realizing they were about to die. This is impossible, Crystal whispered. We are the apex species. We are evolution's triumph. Your parasites, Elena said quietly. Scavengers feeding on the achievements of greater civilizations. Did you really think that was sustainable? Forever, the Leviathan's voice filled the chamber, speaking directly to both human and alien minds. Elena Vasquez, we have come for you. Through the walls of the Dominance, Elena could feel the Leviathan's approach. The ship's biomechanical systems were scanning every cubic meter of the Zephyrian vessel, cataloging its structure, identifying the location of every crew member. You have been harmed. This is unacceptable. Elena felt a strange warmth spread through her body as the Leviathan's healing nanites, transmitted through quantum resonance, began repairing the damage from 3 days of torture. Her wounds closed, her strength returned. The pain that had been her constant companion simply stopped. Elena, Chen's voice came through the quantum beacon. Are you ready to come home? More than ready, Admiral. Extraction commencing. Reality bent around Elena like origami folding in reverse. One moment she hung in energy shackles in the Zephyrian interrogation chamber. The next, she stood on the Leviathan's bridge, surrounded by the ship's biomechanical systems and the warm glow of human minds. Connected through neural interfaces, Admiral Chen approached, her form seeming to shift between human and something more, a hybrid of flesh and technology that represented the ultimate fusion of human and precursor knowledge. Welcome home, Captain. Elena looked around the bridge in wonder. Through the Leviathan's viewports, she could see the Zephyrian fleet, what remained of it, scattered in desperate confusion. Of the original 217 ships, fewer than 50 remained functional. How many crew aboard those vessels? Elena asked. Chen's expression was somber, Approximately 2 million Zephyrians. Elena nodded slowly. Even after everything they'd done to her, the scope of potential death was staggering. Can we offer them surrender? We already did. They refused. Through the ship's neural network, Elena could feel the collective anger of 10,000 human minds. The Leviathan's crew had lost friends and family to Zephyrian aggression. They had spent 3 years in deep space, sacrificing everything to protect their species. Mercy was not high on their list of priorities, but Elena had been tortured by these creatures for 3 days. She had felt their contempt, their absolute certainty in their own superiority, and somehow that made Mercy more important, not less. Admiral, she said quietly, give them one more chance. Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded. The Leviathan's communication systems opened a channel to the surviving Zephyrian vessels. Zephyrian fleet, this is your final opportunity. Surrender immediately and you will be spared. Continue to resist and you will share the fate of your companions. Admiral Vexthar's response came immediately. We are Zephyrians. We do not surrender to inferior species. The remaining Zephyrian ships opened fire in one last desperate volley. Their weapons struck the Leviathan's hull and were absorbed as easily as raindrops hitting the ocean. Elena closed her eyes. I'm sorry. I tried. The Leviathan's weapons spoke again. This time, there was no precision, no surgical removal of individual ships. Reality itself convulsed around the Zephyrian formation. Space twisted into impossible geometries. Time flowed backward and forward simultaneously, and the fundamental forces that held matter together simply stopped. When the distortion cleared, the Zephyrian fleet was gone, not destroyed, not scattered, gone. As if 200 ships and 2 million crew members had never existed. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, not for the Zephyrians, but for what their arrogance had forced humanity to become. Admiral, she said quietly, what have we done? Chen's expression carried the weight of impossible choices. What we had to do, what they made necessary. Through the Leviathan's quantum communication array, signals were already being transmitted across the galaxy. The destruction of the Zephyrian fleet would be recorded, analyzed, and reported to every spacefaring species in known space. The message was simple and terrifying. Humanity was no longer prey. In the weeks that followed the annihilation of the Zephyrian fleet, the galaxy changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated 17 star systems through military superiority, collapsed within days. Without their fleet, without the terror that had kept subject species in line, the empire simply fell apart. Conquered worlds declared independence. Zephyrian colonies found themselves surrounded by hostile neighbors, seeking revenge for centuries of oppression. But the most profound changes occurred in the corridors of power, on 1,000 different worlds, where alien leaders who had never heard of humanity suddenly found themselves asking the same question. What else don't we know about these humans? The Altarian Council, which had considered humanity a minor nuisance in the Outer Rim territories, hastily dispatched diplomatic envoys to Earth. The Vegan Trade Federation, which had refused to establish commerce with primitive primates, suddenly discovered that human colonies produced several commodities they desperately needed. Even the mysterious shadows of the void, who had remained hidden for millennia, sent cryptic messages expressing professional admiration for humanity's approach to species defense. Elena Vasquez found herself at the center of these diplomatic overtures, serving as humanity's primary liaison with species that had previously ignored or dismissed Earth's attempts at contact. The Centaurian ambassador is requesting an audience, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres during their daily briefing aboard the Leviathan. He wants to discuss mutual defense agreements. Elena nodded, making notes on her quantum pad. Schedule it for next week. What about the Regelian delegation? They're offering technology exchanges. Specifically, they want to trade their planetary defense systems for access to our quantum communication networks. Elena paused, stylus hovering over her pad. They're scared. Can you blame them? Torres asked. Every species in the galaxy just watched us delete 100 ships from existence. If I were them, I'd want to be on our good side too. Elena understood their fear, but it troubled her. Humanity had built the Leviathan as a guardian, not a conqueror. They had created the ultimate defensive weapon to protect their children from extinction, but power, once demonstrated, could never be unfelt. Admiral Chen wants to see you in the bio-core, Torres added. She says it's important. Elena made her way through the Leviathan's corridors, past biomechanical systems that pulsed with life and intelligence. The ship had grown even more complex since the battle with the Zephyrians, its precursor-enhanced systems evolving in ways that surprised even its designers. The biocore was the ship's heart, a vast chamber where human consciousness merged with precursor technology to create something greater than either species could achieve alone. Admiral Chen stood at the center of the chamber, her form flickering between human and something transcendent as she communicated directly with the ship's hybrid intelligence. "Elena," Chen said without turning around, "we need to talk." Elena approached, feeling the weight of the ship's attention on her like a physical presence. "What's wrong?" "The Leviathan is dying." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "What do you mean dying?" Chen turned, and Elena could see the strain in her features. The neural interfaces that connected her to the ship were taking their toll, aging her in ways that purely human biology never could. The biomechanical systems were never designed for the kind of power we channeled during the battle. The reality-warping weapons, the quantum manipulations, they're burning out the ship's organic components. Elena looked around. The biocore, noticing details that had escaped her attention before. The bioluminescent patterns were dimmer than she remembered. The organic surfaces seemed less vibrant, less alive. "How long do we have?" "Months, maybe less." The ship's consciousness is slowly degrading as the bioneural interfaces fail. Eventually, the Leviathan will become just another piece of technology, powerful, but no longer truly alive. Elena felt tears burning her eyes. The Leviathan wasn't just humanity's guardian, it was a living being, a fusion of human dreams and alien knowledge that had sacrificed everything to protect their species. "Is there anything we can do?" Chen's smile was infinitely sad. "There's something we can try, but it would require the ultimate sacrifice." Elena waited. The ship's consciousness could be transferred to a new host, a human volunteer who would merge completely with the Leviathan's intelligence, becoming the ship's new guiding mind. Elena understood immediately. "You're volunteering." "I've been connected to this ship for 3 years. I know its thoughts, its dreams, its fears." If anyone could successfully merge with its consciousness, Elena grabbed Chen's arm. "Sarah, you're talking about giving up your humanity, your individual existence. You become something else entirely. I become humanity's eternal guardian. The Leviathan would live, would continue to protect our people for centuries to come." Elena stared at her friend, understanding the magnitude of what she was proposing. Admiral Sarah Chen, hero of the Titan Wars, architect of humanity's greatest victory, was offering to surrender her very identity to ensure their species' survival. There has to be another way. There isn't. The bioneural interfaces are failing too rapidly for conventional repairs. Either we find a new consciousness to guide the ship, or humanity loses its ultimate protector. Elena was quiet for a long moment, contemplating the impossible choice. Finally, she spoke. What would happen to the crew? They could remain aboard. If they chose, or transferred to conventional vessels, the ship would continue to function, but it would need fewer human operators. Elena nodded slowly. "When? Soon. The degradation is accelerating. We have perhaps a week before the damage becomes irreversible." As Elena left the biocore, she carried with her the weight of humanity's future. The Leviathan had saved their species from extinction, but at a cost that was only now becoming clear. Their ultimate guardian required ultimate sacrifice. The question that haunted her was simple: would humanity prove worthy of such dedication? The ceremony took place in the Leviathan's central consciousness chamber, witnessed by representatives from across human space and observed by alien ambassadors, who had come to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of the biomechanical altar, her naval uniform replaced by the organic interface suit that would facilitate her final merger with the ship's consciousness. Around her, the Leviathan systems pulsed with patterns of light that seemed almost like anticipation. Elena Vasquez delivered the eulogy for a woman who was still alive. "Admiral Sarah Chen has served humanity for 37 years. Elena's voice carried throughout the ship via neural link, reaching every mind aboard. She commanded fleets in the Titan Wars. She designed the strategies that saved Earth from the Altarian invasion. She conceived and guided the Leviathan project that preserved our species from extinction." Elena paused, looking at her friend, who stood ready to sacrifice everything for humanity's future. Today, she makes the ultimate sacrifice, not death, but transformation. She will become something more than human, something eternal, something that will guard our children for centuries to come. Chen stepped forward, approaching the biomechanical interface that would merge her consciousness with the ship's failing systems. As she placed her hands on the organic controls, her voice carried throughout the Leviathan. I do this not as an ending, but as a beginning. The Leviathan will live, humanity will be protected, and somewhere in the quantum patterns of this ship's consciousness, Sarah Chen will endure. The transformation began slowly. Light flowed up from the interface, surrounding Chen's form, penetrating her body at the cellular level. Her consciousness expanded, touching the ship's vast intelligence, merging with systems that spanned 17 miles of biomechanical complexity. Elena watched through tears as her friend's individual identity dissolved into something greater. Chen's human form became translucent, then transparent, finally fading entirely as her consciousness distributed throughout the ship's neural network. For a moment, the Leviathan was silent. Then a voice spoke, familiar yet transformed, human, yet transcendent. We are, the Guardian. We remember Sarah Chen. We remember humanity. We remember why we exist. The ship's systems blazed with renewed life. Bioluminescent patterns raced across its hull like neural impulses. The reality-warping weapons hummed with power. The quantum shield stabilized into impenetrable barriers. The Leviathan lived, but the cost was evident to everyone present. Sarah Chen, the woman who had saved humanity, no longer existed as an individual being. She had become something eternal and alien, a fusion of human love and cosmic respect. Elena considered this. Is that good or bad? It is unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, a dominant species is using its power to protect others rather than conquer them. The effects are rippling through civilizations we have never contacted. Elena walked to the observation deck's viewport, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so hostile and alien. Now they represented a galaxy where humanity's children could grow up safe, where other species' children enjoyed the same protection. Sarah, she said quietly, using her friend's original name, are you happy? The Guardian's response carried complex emotions, loss, purpose, and something that might have been contentment. We are what we chose to become. We are the voice that whispers to tyrants in their sleep, reminding them that every action has consequences. We are the shadow that falls across those who would harm the innocent. We are the Guardian who never sleeps. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. I miss you. We are always here, in every protected world, every saved life, every child who grows up without fear of extinction. We are the love that refuses to let evil triumph. As Elena watched, a new ship appeared in the station's approach vectors, an alien design she didn't recognize. Her aide would have the identification within minutes, would determine what this new species needed, what threats they faced, what protection they sought, and if necessary, the Guardian would answer their call. Elena smiled, thinking of Sarah Chen's sacrifice and the galaxy it had transformed. Humanity had faced extinction and chosen to become something greater, not conquerors, but protectors, not empire builders, but guardians of the innocent. In the darkness between stars, the Leviathan continued its eternal vigil, carrying the consciousness of a woman who had given up everything to ensure that no child, human or alien, would ever again face extinction alone. The Guardian's watch would never end, and in a galaxy full of predators, the prey had finally evolved teeth. And that, my friends, is how the aliens learned that mockery has consequences, and that sometimes the most dangerous prisoner is the one who's been counting down to justice. What did you think of Elena's sacrifice and the Guardian's eternal vigil? The way humanity chose protection over domination? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing how these stories of hope and sacrifice resonate with fellow sci-fi fans. If you enjoyed this epic tale of ultimate guardianship and the price of protecting others, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more stories that explore what it truly means to be human in an infinite universe. And check out the next video I've chosen for you, another tale of humanity defying impossible odds. Until next time, remember, in the darkness between stars, love is the strongest force in the universe, and sometimes, love comes armed with reality-warping weapons.